Hello, Samuel Andreyev here. I'm a composer, and today I'm going to look at 20 pop and rock songs that I think are legitimate masterpieces. So a couple of words about this list. The first thing that I have to point out always is that this list is, of course, incomplete, unfair, biased, and arbitrary. But you can, of course, leave your comments below and tell me what you think I should have included. So these are all songs, so that excludes music that is without voice. So that means things that I really like, such as Autechre or Aphex Twin, are not able to be included. The other thing is that the list is heavily oriented towards songs that use the studio as a musical instrument, so that are primarily recorded pieces as opposed to things where you can buy the sheet music and perform them yourself. So this is primarily oriented towards that, which means that a lot of music prior to the 50s that I might have included otherwise is not here, although there are a couple of exceptions. So let's get started. Number one is Anything Goes by Cole Porter from all the way back in 1934, 90 years ago, but it's still an amazing song. Everything about it is outstanding. The lyrics, the music, the harmony, the chord progressions, the piano playing by Cole Porter and his singing on the version that you can find of him performing the song is amazing. It's a brilliant song. It's witty, it's urbane, it's literate, it's incredibly well constructed. It's a high quality piece of music. What can I say? But it also has this popular flair that is immensely appealing. The other thing about Anything Goes that's interesting is that the melody and the rhythm are both quite intricate and complex, which means that it's not a terribly easy song to hum along to or to just sort of play by ear unless you know it quite well. So yeah, it's an intricate, incredibly well-crafted piece of work that I return to again and again. Number two is Good Golly, Miss Molly by Little Richard. So this song is like a powder keg. It's musical dynamite. It's so powerful. It's overwhelming. It's got this intense physical energy that is intoxicating, and I think it's impossible to remain immune to it. And it's amazing also that, well, this came out in 1958, so what, 66 years later, that bright star is totally undimmed. I find that amazing. Number three is a deeply touching piece, Death Letter Blues by Son House of 1965, or at least that's the version that I'm referring to here. The song is actually quite a lot older, but there's a quite amazing recording of it from 65. So, I mean, the thing that impresses me the most about this, I think, is how vital, how energetic, how lively his performance is. Nothing about it is dead or cliched or just going through the motions. I think it's impossible to take rhythms and push them harder than Son House does in his performances, which is something that you see in a lot of music by Delta blues artists that I love equally, such as Leighton and Hopkins and so many others. But I mean, it's amazing stuff. He treats the guitar almost like a percussion instrument in the video that you can see on YouTube of this piece. And my God, it's brilliant. Number four, For No One by the Beatles, 1966. So this is probably a lesser known Beatles track. None of them are unknown, obviously, but this track doesn't seem to come up all that often in discussions about the Beatles music. I like it because of the oddness of the instrumentation, which is totally incoherent and miscellaneous. So we have harpsichord, piano, tambourine, bass guitar. I mean, it's a strange instrumentation. Like each instrument points in a totally different aesthetic and historic direction, but there they are playing together. And it's a brilliant little bit of arranging, actually. It works incredibly well. The song is rather minimal. There's just a few little coloristic touches here and there, just the bare minimum that we need to provide a setting for the voice. And there's nothing extraneous. The elements are incredibly carefully chosen. It's got a beautiful melody, and it's impeccably sung and produced. And, well, what more could you ask? Number five, Do You Like Worms by the Beach Boys. So this is a complicated one. Every song that the Beach Boys ever recorded is done. Okay, all of them. There are no exceptions to this. And you're going to say, oh, what about Pet Sounds? They're all dumb. All of those songs are dumb. But on this song, which was to be included in the album Smile, which of course was not released when it was intended to be, the dumbness serves an aesthetic purpose that is actually quite interesting, I think. So this song has a very unusual instrumentation, bizarre, absurd lyrics, a very innovative production, and also it's got these dramatic seismic shifts in musical texture, these total non sequiturs that keep interrupting the flow of the music. So it's sort of this patchwork assemblage of unrelated little fragments. And I don't know what they're doing together in the same song. I don't know why Mike Love, who's this kind of, well, we won't get into that. I don't know what Mike Love is doing, making these bizarre vocalizations on this track, probably against his better judgment and against his will. There you have it. It's just such a strange song. One of the reasons it's on this list is because it's singular. There's nothing else like it. And even if it's a kind of an accidental masterpiece, as opposed to something that came out of great skill, let's say, or great depth of content, because there's not really much depth here. Nevertheless, it's singular and interesting enough that I think it warrants a spot. Okay, number 6, Autumn Almanac by the Kinks. Well, I love the Kinks. So unlike the Beatles, whose recordings are always pretty much squeaky clean in those nice, luxurious EMI studios that they recorded at in Abbey Road and all of that, the Kinks recorded in a rather less premium studio called Pi Studios in London, where nothing really worked. The instruments were broken. The performances are really sloppy. But there's an amazing sort of charming vitality to all of these songs. And each member of the group had a distinct musical instrumental personality. And it sounds like a real band. They sound really fantastic, I think. And I think Ray Davies was a bona fide, brilliant songwriter. No question about that. The thing I also like about Autumn Almanac in particular is that, the Kinks never jumped on the sort of stupid hippie bandwagon thing that Frank Zappa was always making fun of. They went in the opposite direction. They went hard in the opposite direction. So they wrote songs about like drinking tea and like having back pain and stuff and having to like sweep the front porch. Like the most banal, boring sort of picture of sort of middle-class British life in the 60s. But these are great. Somebody had to write those songs, and I don't think anybody did it better than them. Number 7 is one of my favorite things ever. White Light, White Heat by the Velvet Underground, 1968. So the experience of listening to that track it's like a physical assault. I don't know how else to describe this. I feel afterwards as though I've been damaged somehow, like as though I've been in contact with some nefarious forces from the underworld, and as though my hearing, my physical person has been somehow compromised. It's fantastic. I don't know how else to recommend this track. There's nothing else like it. I do prefer the second album of the Velvet Underground to the first one. The second is just filthy. Like the recording, everything is saturated. It's got this manic energy. The songs are deeply dark and twisted and strange, and but it's amazing. And there's something theatrical about it. The sound is just so intense. The personalities of the players are powerfully projected, and well, it sounds like a band. There's weirdly little of that these days. Okay, number 8 is Dominoes by Syd Barrett from his second solo album, which was released in 1970. So this is we're kind of in the same category as the Beach Boys here, which is to say that I think of this as an accidental masterpiece. It doesn't come out of mastery. It doesn't come out of great, profound content or anything like that. Syd Barrett, I think, is truly a sad case. He was sort of a middle-class English boy from Cambridge who was failed by basically everybody that should have been watching out for him, except maybe his sister Rosemary, who did take quite good care of him, especially later in his life. But his life was a bit of a catastrophe. He was talented and charismatic and had lots of interesting ideas, and people loved to be around him. But I don't think he was a genius the way that he's described. I think he was very talented, but maybe not a absolutely first-rate talent. But Nevertheless, Dominoes is a charming song. It's very sad. It's sort of very wistful and talks about, well, it's a song about boredom, basically, about being totally listless and aimless and having nothing to do and just sitting around in your living room, whiling away the time, playing dominoes while it rains outside. I don't know, something like that. And it's a very simple song. You know, he had a very limited range of things that he could do on the guitar, just a couple of simple rhythmic figures that he could play and stuff like that, simple chord progressions. But there's something about the delivery, the accent also, I have to say. The lyrics are very nice, they're memorable, and that haunting backwards guitar part that was recorded more or less by accident, but it's like a lot of Syd Barrett stuff is, you know, imagine you have a deck of cards and you shuffle it and throw it up in the air. There's a non-zero probability that those cards will land in some kind of a perfect geometric pattern on the floor. It's very unlikely that will happen, but it could. And a lot of these Barrett songs kind of have that quality. It's like, this shouldn't work. This shouldn't work at all, but somehow it does. It just sort of falls together. Number 9 is Moon in June by Soft Machine of 1970. This is the final track on their mammoth double LP, Third, and it's the only track on the album that features vocals. And I think this is just a great song. Robert Wyatt is he's for me everything that I would want in a pop performer, in a singer-songwriter. He's charming, he's a very good musician, he's a multi-instrumentalist, he's literate, he's intelligent, he's got lots of ideas, he's a great player, wonderful vocalist, he has personality in spades, and he's able to just create something like this sort of very free-flowing, very rambly, kind of extremely long 20-minute song that has all of these different sections and subsections and goes all over the place. It's kind of Proustian, actually. It's the sort of musical equivalent of Proust, I guess. Anyway, I love it, and it keeps me returning, and I find it always very charming and engaging. Number 10, Prisencolinensinainciusol by Adriano Celentano. So there's a fairly good chance that many of you watching this video will not have seen that song. You really have to watch the accompanying video to get the whole thing. It's a Gesamtkunstwerk. Okay, this is a total artwork that involves lyrics, music, obviously. There's a video, there's a dance. Well, you really have to see the dance performance to believe it. So what this is, Prisencolinensinainciusol, is a kind of attempt to create a song that sounds just like American pop music, but for an Italian audience who presumably mostly do not speak English. And so the lyrics are total nonsense, but they're delivered with the cadences, with the phonemes, with the tonality, well, everything that you would expect from an American singer, except that it's all made up language. Nevertheless, it's just a brilliant song. I can't believe he did that. I can't believe it was a huge hit all over Europe also. It's like a title that nobody can even pronounce, but somehow he pulled it off. This is probably my favorite song out of the entire list. So, Prisencolinensinainciusol, which of course means nothing, by Adriano Celentano. Number 11 is Seven Bridges Road by Steve Young. It's a beautiful song. It's beautifully written, impeccable craft. It's touching. It's got a beautiful melody. It's kind of haunting. Steve Young epitomizes the sort of isolated, lonely American romantic figure archetype perfectly. He really does it right. And it's a great song. Not too many people seem to know Steve Young. But yeah, this is really good. Number 12 is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, 1975. Okay, so I almost didn't include this because it's just so obvious. It's like, we know that Bohemian Rhapsody is a good song. Thanks, Professor, for pointing that out. Like, okay, fine. I'm not even going to say anything about it because it's just like one of those obvious things. It's like saying, well, you should read Dante. It's like, okay, yeah, you should read Dante. Anyway, it's a good song. Number 13 is Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush, 1978. Yeah, that's a really, really seriously good song. I love people who just are, transparently, obviously brilliant from a young age, just being able to do things that nobody else can do with incredible force of character and virtuosity and inventiveness and charisma, and yeah, Kate Bush could do all of those things, and it's an unbelievably auspicious debut for a young singer-songwriter to have done that at the outset of a career. This song that is totally bizarre, totally from out of left field. She's just doing her own thing and doing it amazingly, and it's still totally captivating 50 years later. Number 14, Hothead, Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band from 1980. This is from the second last LP that Beefheart ever released. It's called Dock at the Radar Station. And this track is just admirable from start to finish. It's acerbic, it's kind of biting, it's sarcastic. The vocal delivery is perfect. The instrumental parts are so inventive and interesting. The timbre is dry, it's grating, but it's also, yeah, it's really good. I love Hothead. Number 15 is Whip It by Devo, 1980. So they're just so funny, these guys. And, you know, I mentioned that the Adriano Celentano song is a Gesamtkunstwerk. Well, that's also the case here. You really have to see the video because it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen anywhere. I mean, everything about it, the personalities of the band members, the outfits, the hats, obviously, it's really, really funny. But it's also extremely well produced. It's extremely interesting, engaging music, lots of nice sounds, really well played, great piece of production from start to finish. I love Whip It, and it just makes me laugh every time. Number 16, Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. Yeah, that's such a good song, right? It's a canonically good song. I think there's not really too much dispute about this. I like lots of Talking Heads material, but this one in particular just always, you know, it's like the quintessence of everything about them that was interesting, I think. The lyrics are off the wall. There's a sort of free associative element to it that I personally enjoy very much because I like things that have an open meaning. I don't really like songs where they're overly transparent, where there's like a message, where it's like you open up a fortune cookie and there's your little message and then you're done and you throw it away. I've never liked that. I like things that project multiple possible meanings far outside the boundaries of the song itself. And Once in a Lifetime does that, as does the music video, and as did a lot of things that they did. And it's also just rhythmically amazing. It's really well played. It's an incredible production. And yeah, great song. Number 17, 16 Shells from a 30-06 by Tom Waits, 1983. Yeah, well, the thing that gets me about a lot of the songs that we've looked at so far, in fact, virtually all of them, is that every single one of them projects this powerful sort of quasi-theatric persona. And you can sort of lose yourself in the personality of the artist. And that's certainly the case here. There's no one like Tom Waits. Nobody else ever wrote songs like this. It's amazingly inventive in the orchestration. He would bring in the unlikeliest instruments. This was around the time that I think under the influence of his wife, Kathleen Brennan, Tom Waits was starting to explore a much broader palette of sounds and going a lot farther also in terms of integrating his own literary interests into the songs and sort of branching out of this kind of low-life beatnik persona that he had inhabited up to that point. And the result is a pretty amazingly powerful and brilliant album, Swordfish Trombones. Anyways, 16 Shells from a 30-06. Really good track. Number 18. This is the Canadian side of me. Everybody Knows by Leonard Cohen, 1988. Yeah, it's brilliant. Leonard Cohen, of course, was a great singer-songwriter. I don't think there's too much dispute about that. And Everybody Knows is just it's so witty, it's so funny, it's brilliant, it's literary. He delivers it perfectly. He has exactly the perfect voice for the songs he's singing. The production might sound a little bit silly or dated today. In fact, probably in 1988, it already sounded kind of silly. It's got this kind of like exercise video kind of vibe to it. So it's a little bit silly. And then there's this totally incongruous element on this track, which I've always really wondered about. They included an oud player, the O-U-D. It's this Eastern instrument that, I don't know what it's doing on there. It's just sort of plucking away throughout the entire track and not really adding very much. I don't know. Anyway, it's a really, really good track. Number 19 is Sabotage by the Beastie Boys, 1994. I really respect and admire the Beastie Boys. And I think part of the reason for that is when you first hear them, you think, these guys are morons. And then you realize they're actually geniuses, legitimately. They're brilliant, creative forces, all of them. That's hard to do. It's hard to be, have this kind of imbecilic exterior, but to have this extraordinary creative force, nevertheless. And that's powerful. I just think it's hilarious. It's original. It's inventive. It's sonically impressive. The vocals have incredible force of personality. It's amazingly fun to listen to. And it's totally fresh. It still sounds fresh, like 30 years later. It's pretty good. And number 20. So I had thought actually at one point about having an arbitrary cutoff date of 2000 for these songs, similarly to what I did with my video about 10 masterworks of the 20th century. But there's one post-2000 song that sort of made its way onto this list, and it's Who Is It by Bjork, 2004, from her album Medulla. And this is an album that I've always really rated because she tried to make a whole record using only vocal sounds. Well, she didn't try to, she did it and succeeded brilliantly at it, I have to add. So the album has quite a diverse range of textures, but they're all produced somehow or other with the human voice, even if some of the songs, of course, are treated electronically or they're sampled or looped or whatever it is. But on this particular track, there's a throat singer and there's also a beatboxer accompanying Bjork. And yeah, it's great. It's an amazing accomplishment. Just totally grateful to be able to enjoy the fruits of these brilliant, creative people. We need more of that. We need way more of it. So that's it. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you want to see more of what I'm doing. And of course, you can always contribute on Patreon if you want to ensure that I'm able to keep on doing this. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.